originally came up with the concept of this piece, I was really fascinated by the darker personality disorders that oftentimes are immediately labeled as evil. I wanted to dive into the science behind someone who has these really dark personality disorders and see if through that I can create a conversation with people to develop empathy and understanding, so that way we understand that we're all kind of similar, regardless of mental illness.
I could tell that there was a lot of thought as well as guidance from the mentor into thinking about how to create something that wasn't just an interesting hip hop piece. It was something that had some depth to it.
The way that I approached the choreography and the idea overall was, how do malignant narcissists and their brains physicalize onto dancers emotionally and physically? Malignant narcissism is the combination of antisocial personality disorder with psychopathy and narcissistic personality disorder combined into one person.
So when I was working with Elliot, a lot of the work was, you're pretty much world building, right? How do you take us in so that we are now a part of the brain? What do you do? How do you orchestrate the space? How do you have the dancers change moods? Things like that.
This opening scene is supposed to represent the prefrontal cortex in the front and the amygdala in the back. Right after this build-up, the amygdala sort of takes over and they push right to the front. Their movements are incredibly sharp yet explosive, and the reasoning behind that is because there's a lot of anger that is currently taking over the amygdala. After you have this clump of the two parts of the brain mixing, we have two different conversations happening. So the people on the left represent a maladaptive trio. So you have the amygdala and a part of the prefrontal cortex that has decided to use the anger in a more aggressive fashion. And then on the opposite end, you have the prefrontal cortex that is represented in the gray pants, who are trying to have an adaptive thought and counteract that anger. So the anger itself isn't bad, but the cognitions are choosing whether or not to use that anger in a healthy or not healthy way. There's a moment in the dance where these two duos are kind of having a little bit of a spat, and that is supposed to be representative of the duality of that person looking in the mirror. So it's just little things like that where I was able to ask myself a question and move it into a working idea rather than taking the baseline of, okay, how can I make anger into choreography? When I first started to explain the idea behind the piece, I had to be careful with how much jargon I just threw on them.
Because you're talking about neurons and all of these things, and that might overwhelm your dancer at first because they might not be in the same headspace.
And the emotions that, whether you're a malignant narcissist or you're someone who feels empathy, we each experience the same emotions. We just present them in different ways.
It almost expands the research a little bit, right? It's not, I don't look at it as omission. It's now, I have this knowledge, this vocabulary, and I need to expand the vocabulary so that it can reach more people. So then you get the masterpiece that you see on the stage.
We're always asking our students, if your music cut out in the middle of the show, could your choreography still speak to your concept?